Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another weekly webinar from Visit North Carolina. This week, we're going to focus on the road to recovery. As always, these webinars are recorded and will be available on our COVID-19 page on the partners.visitnc.com site. If you have any questions, we'll be answering questions at the end of the webinar. Just type them on the right-hand side of your screen in the question bar. If you're calling in, you can email questions to guy.gaster, G-A-S-T-E-R, at visitnc.com. All right, now we'll get started. Today we're going to talk about how we are trying to work on the next phase of reopening the economy back up. So first, we're going to have Marlise Taylor, our great research person, talk about where we see the current visitor mindset, what we're doing, and how we're going to react to that. There's a lot of fascinating research going on about how people feel about visitors and visitors coming into their community. She's going to talk about that. I'm going to talk a little about the campaign we're working on to spark some recovery, what we've already done with the Count on Me NC program. And then Allison Schultz, our wonderful marketing director, is going to talk about sort of our first breach out there into a modified campaign that's really promotional, but it's also charitable. And that's Cook It Forward NC. So we got a good webinar for you today. Hopefully we'll do it quickly and get to some questions, but let's head to Marlise.
Thanks, Wit. Thanks so much for everyone tuning in to us today. I've got a lot of slides, so I'm going to move very quickly, and I'm going to try to minimize myself here. Hold on one second. Okay, that won't work. There we go. Okay, let's get started. So here's what we're going to talk about today. The research agenda, we're going to talk about traveler sentiment in the southern states of the U.S. We're going to talk about some U.S. level safety perceptions, and then a brief economic forecast of where we see things going and where our vendors have told us that they're forecasting the tourism industry to be like later in the year. So first of all, let's talk about immediately when COVID-19 began to affect the industry, several research vendors began frequent studies to understand traveler sentiment to assist DMOs and tourism businesses. And you heard from Erin Francis Cummings a few weeks ago on one of these webinars with destination analysts, and she gave you an update of where we were at that time in terms of the U.S. Traveler sentiment. What I'm going to share with you today is the responses from the southern region travelers. So it's just that south region, because that really encompasses our primary markets and part of our secondary markets. So we've been working with destination analysts for 10 weeks. We just got week 10 data yesterday. So what I'm going to do is show you the first 9 weeks of data for the southern region, and then I'm going to share with you some preliminary US level that we got yesterday at the end. So these first set of research slides are just the southern travelers, which would encompass our primary markets. So the first little section is about personal feelings among southern travelers about the virus as it relates to travel. So personal safety concerns are still high, with 3/4 of the respondents indicating they are concerned about their safety and that of their friends and family. This sentiment is at its lowest in several weeks, though still very high. You can see there on the left there, the 74% and 72% of respondents. Expectations that the severity of the coronavirus situation to get better in the next month fell sharply last week from the week prior. It is presumed that with the news of states opening back up and the uncertainty of whether that is the best decision, potential travelers were less confident of an improvement. 2 weeks ago, 39% indicated they expected the situation to get worse in the next month. Last week, that percentage grew to 49%. And conversely, 2 weeks ago, 35% expected an improvement, whereas last week, that percentage shrank to 25%. Interesting results here, too, relative to avoiding all travel until the crisis is over. We saw gradual decreases in those who strongly agreed until last week, when the proportion went back up. Again, I think this is due in part to concern over opening back up too quickly. The perceived safety in different travel activities hasn't changed significantly, and we're really fortunate in North Carolina to have so many activities available in our state that are perceived as lower risk, such as outdoor recreation, road trips, and visiting friends and family. The activities where you find many people in small areas are perceived to have the highest risk, as you can see on the left side of this graph. Half of the southern region respondents expect to travel at some point in the fall and agree that they will be taking more road trips and regional trips. However, about half of them also responded that they will take a staycation instead of a summer vacation this year as well. And I will mention, as an aside, I was on a webinar a couple weeks ago with destination analysts, and they actually had a focus group at the end of the call with actual travelers. And I'll tell you that the term staycation is really subjective. There were several of the focus group participants, when asked about staycation, that talked about traveling in state or traveling to state parks, you know, in their regional area. So to some travelers, staycation really doesn't mean staying in your hometown. It means staying closer. So I would just remind everyone that that term is subjective, and we need to remember that. Conferences and conventions are still off the table until this situation is resolved by a large proportion of the southern respondents. Despite all the concerns and anxiety, American travelers, and particularly southern travelers, miss travel. Nearly 70% of the respondents indicated that they can't wait to get back out and travel again when the time is right. And when asked about specific parts of the shelter-in-place life that they miss, the most common responses were vacations with 70%, dining in restaurants, weekend getaways, and even the actual planning of travel. Southern travelers also miss live concerts, museums, sporting events, going to bars and tasting rooms, and even they're missing their business trips and going to those conventions and conferences. It won't be a quick resumption to travel activities though. Half of the travelers say that they'll get back in carefully, and nearly as many indicated that they will test the waters first. Only 13% of southern respondents say that they'll jump back into travel. Health and safety guidelines are extremely important to travelers, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but more than half of the southern respondents indicate that they'll be much more interested in a travel business, such as a hotel or restaurant, that clearly state that they are following their state's guidelines. This is very key. In terms of the level of comfort of southern travelers with their home state reopening, only about a third indicated last week that they were comfortable. This was a decrease from 40% the week before. This issue has become polarized, and we need to tread carefully in terms of marketing until we see these sentiments shift. So the key takeaways in this section: while personal safety concerns are high, they're at their lowest they've been in nearly 2 months. Concerns about the economy are still high, and the majority of travelers really don't expect an improvement in the next month. And while perceptions do continue to improve, nearly 2/3 indicate that they're holding off on travel until the crisis is over. But remember that Americans do miss travel, especially our southern region, and we can't wait to get back when the time is right. So when will they travel? When will that time be right? The further we move through this pandemic, the more travelers realize that the crisis may not be resolved before the summer travel season, or completely resolved. The proportion of travelers who disagree the most with this statement sharply increased last week. However, nearly 50% of travelers hold out hope for that fall travel season. When asked about tentatively scheduled trips, the fall months have continued to see increases, though still in the 20 to 30% range of southern travelers. When asked about the month in which they will take their next road trip, more than 40% indicated August through September, though a large proportion indicated that it would be 2021 before their next road trip. And how far would they go when they do take that road trip? Less than 500 miles is the average. Air travel still isn't seen as a safe alternative at this time, with the number of travelers who strongly agree they will avoid air travel increasing a great deal in the last week, to the largest proportion we have seen in over 2 months. More than 40% of travelers agree that they will replace long-haul trips with regional trips, as also evidenced by the average distance that we saw on a few slides back. So the key takeaways for this section: while the summer travel season may be challenging, fall travel expectations have increased. Feelings about road trips could bring a high volume of travelers, and Americans in the South do expect their next road trip to be an average of less than 500 miles. Advertising in the COVID world. Despite the concerns that travelers have, Travel advertising still brings joy. Nearly 60% of respondents say that the most recent travel ad they saw made them happy. In fact, nearly half say that they are open to learning about new travel experiences now. And who will travelers trust when planning travel in the next 12 months? Local and state tourism offices rank the highest, just after friends and relatives. And I think this is so important for all of us. Respondents indicate that they would be receptive to travel messages via websites, Facebook, email, internet advertising, and other digital methods. But we must be careful with how we advertise. Tone is very important, and travelers want honest, humble, friendly, and direct tones, as evidenced in the word cloud on your left. They do not want authoritative ads. They want to be talked with or to, not at, as you can see on the word cloud on the right. This slide is very similar to that of asking about their feelings regarding their home communities opening back up. There's a marked split between those who would be happy and those who would be unhappy to see advertisements for their home communities right now. The key takeaways for this section: travel ads can deliver happiness and joy, but this is only true if using the right methods. Potential travelers want that honest and friendly communication, but not authoritative. Travelers trust DMOs, but adherence to the above is key. And we also need to be considerate of local sentiment. This part concludes the part on the Southern travelers, and now I'm going to give you a little bit of information about the US level data that we received yesterday. So again, this is a larger set, but I think you will find some very interesting points in this. For the majority of US travelers, while they are mentally preparing to travel, they have not yet booked that travel. Only 22% say they have booked their hotels for their next leisure trip. Travel plans are well developed in their minds by nearly 70% of US travelers. So they're really thinking about those trips. They're thinking about where they want to go and when they want to go, but they haven't pulled the trigger yet. Travel destinations have been selected even if the plans have not been solidified. And what's the primary reason for the next leisure trip of American travelers? Vacation and VFR are the top reasons for leisure travel when Americans do begin traveling again, followed by weekend getaways. And this was very exciting. When asked which states American travelers plan to visit on their next trip, North Carolina ranked 5 with 10% of the US level respondents. So I thought this was very exciting. Americans are most likely to stay in a hotel and use their personal vehicles on their next leisure trip, which goes along with road trips, you know, being preferred over air travel and more regional trips. So this confirms that. However, intent to visit indoor venues is still subdued. You can see where people will go to restaurants, but they may be using takeout instead of sit down. Parks and gardens and museums and aquariums where there may be a little more space around. US travelers plan to be responsible for many safety measures themselves on their next trip, including carrying hand sanitizers with them, following social distancing guidelines, avoiding crowds, wearing face masks, and using takeout rather than eating in a restaurant. And along with being personally responsible, travelers plan to do their homework on whether and how businesses are managing pandemic responses prior to traveling. So they're really going to do their homework. But we need to know that less than 13% of travelers trust that travel-related businesses will look out for their health. So they're really going to do their homework again, and they're going to be prepared themselves. Similarly, confidence is not high that travel-related companies can safely be reopened. Opinions on face masks are not split, where only 1 in 10 disagree that people should wear face masks in public spaces. So that concludes the travel sentiment part of my presentation. And now I'm just going to give you a very brief look at lodging and economic forecasts. We have begun receiving quarterly commercial lodging forecasts from STR. We actually had started doing this prior to the pandemic. And I want to share with you some information that we just received, as well as some up-to-date vacation rental data. 2020 hotel motel occupancy, commercial occupancy from STR is forecast to be down 37%, and ADR is expected to be down 15% for the year. Though you can see from that middle graph that it isn't expected to dip much more than that through 2021. I would say this is the positive here, is that ADR continues to hang in there. If you'll remember from previous recessions, that ADR takes a lot longer to come back after a big dip than demand does. So it is positive that the ADR is not dipping as much as the occupancy and demand. Demand will be slow to recover as well, with it being next spring really before we see noticeable growth in the room nights sold. Vacation rental is a little, data is a little different because this reflects current bookings rather than a forecast. So this is what is on the books already. So you could see that there's a rise in bookings for the summer. Future reservations are slow. And again, remember the slides from the sentiment that said, you know, people have these plans in their mind to travel in the fall, and they want to, they know where they want to go and what they want to do, but they haven't pulled the trigger yet on that. And so these graphs confirm some of those suspicions there. Travel impact losses. We received this data from the U.S. Travel Association. Annually, travel spending in North Carolina could have a 35 to 45% decline from its 2019 level. And while things will get better through the rest of the year, the losses will continue. And finally, this is just a look at travel spending losses by week for North Carolina and our neighboring states. This is again from the U.S. Travel Association. As of May 9th, weekly travel spending had dropped 84% to 82 million. These spending losses contribute to cumulative tax revenue losses of 115 million in state taxes and 69 million in local taxes since the week of March 21st, as compared to that same time period last year. So that's all I have for today, and I will certainly answer any questions. I think we're going to probably do questions towards the end, but thank you so much for listening, and we're going to move back to Wit.
All right, thanks, Marlise. We really appreciate what you're doing and everything you're providing for us. I'm going to talk a little more about the path to recovery. Hopefully you guys can see this. Oops. Now, hopefully you guys can see this. So, as Marlise said, you know, this has had a huge impact on the state, and a tremendous loss in spending, visitation, and business and unemployment. We are trying to get back as quickly as we can, but we want to do it in the right way. I think as we saw in a lot of the research out there, there's still a lot of trepidation, a lot of fear that we need to deal with the traveling community, as far as going out and traveling, and also as far as bringing back visitors into your community, welcoming them back. So we're going to have to deal with that. One of the things that's going to help us deal with that is we were fortunate that Senator Rick Gunn and Chuck Edwards, Ralph Hayes, and several others were very prominent in getting the Visit NC $5 million as part of the economic recovery funds. Now, those are specifically given to us to develop COVID-19 specific concept strategies and materials tailored to educate people in ways to travel in a safe and socially distant way and prevent community reintroduction of the epidemic, which is, I think, what we all want. We want to get people traveling again, but we want them to do it in a safe way. And really, we think tourism is the best way to help spark that economic recovery for the entire state, because we are so immediate in the value we bring, because of the lucrative 15-to-1 return on investment that we do, and because of the impact it has on the state. So our business objective, of course, is to help restore the economic vitality. How we're going to do that, we're going to have to drive consideration and conversion. We're really looking at short and midterm travels. Marlise showed you, people aren't going to get on a plane. They're not going to take those big trips. So we've got to get them in those smaller trips. And we have to get them to travel in a safe and responsible way, because that's not only is that part of the directive that we've received, that's the way we need people to behave in order for more of them to feel confident to come and visit, and for us not to have to impose stricter restrictions if we have additional cases of COVID-19. So our primary way of getting this out, we released this week, is the Count on Me NC campaign. Hopefully you've heard about it. Hopefully you go and you'll take the pledge yourself to agree to count on me to behave in the right way and travel throughout our state in a COVID safe and responsible and socially distant way. So what that really Count on Me NC is, it's a pledge between our businesses and our visitors to say that we're all going to do things the right way. It's sort of a pledge for public health. And so there's a way that consumers and residents can go there and see what the behaviors are that they should do. And then there's one for businesses as well on the site that we just launched. And what the promise is from the businesses is that, you know, we're going to do all the right things. We're going to do safe sanitation. We're going to have health checks. We're going to have sanitizers. We're going to do the right types of cleaning and sanitizing. And that's going to help everybody come and be confident to go and have a safe and healthy visit to our attractions, our restaurants, our hotels, and other tourism businesses. But now we're also expecting the visitor to make a promise as well, and the resident to say, you know, that they're going to do the right thing. If they've been recently exposed, that they won't travel. If they're sick, that they won't travel. If they have underlying health conditions, that they'll be careful in the way that they travel. And that we also want everybody just to kind of take a breath and realize we're going to have to come out of this slowly and gradually build back to where we were before. So basically, the Count on Me NC program is 5 different procedures. The first 3 are really specific to restaurants because restaurants have to deal with food safety. And in a COVID world, that becomes even more difficult than just say you're an attraction or an outfitter. So the first 3 practices are really for restaurants. 4 and 5 are for all general businesses in the state, and they can take them. And when they take them, they receive a certificate that says they've completed this course and they understand more about what to do. And then we'll give them some tags that they can use and things they can print out to have stickers and social media, and they can post that their business is part of the Count on Me NC movement to dedicate it to COVID safe travel. Now, these 5 programs were designed by a food science specialist at NC State who's an expert in health and safety. So these aren't just things we made up. They're actual process that the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association created to work with the Department of Health and Human Services to promote this campaign. So we're really excited about it. There's also a page on the countonmenc.org site where you can go and see the businesses that have already completed the 3 restaurant trainings, and soon we'll have businesses that have completed all the trainings. So you can go and patronize businesses that are doing things the right way. I'm happy to say there's already more than 500 businesses that have gone through and taken this course. Of course, there's about 47,000 tourism businesses across the state. Eventually, we would love for every single one of them to do it. So we're excited about those folks doing it and moving that campaign along, because that's the way we think we're going to get people to restart travel. And that's part of this recovery campaign. So right now during the stay at home, we're developing and doing the production on it. We're starting the research and setting up the program. We hope that the state will be moving into phase 2 on Friday, May 22nd, which will lift the stay at home order. People will be allowed to travel throughout the state. And as that comes back, we will implement a lot of these, more of these practices and get back into the process of advertising and recruiting people to come to our area. But remember, we don't want a stampede of people. We want people to come in a safe and socially distant way. So this campaign really is a boost. It's a jump starter sort of to our regular campaign. Of course, right now in the middle of the COVID crisis, we have suspended most of our advertising and marketing efforts. As we hit into the recovery throughout this summer, we're going to go back to our core campaign to try and get our visitors to come. But we're also going to have this recovery campaign reminding people of the specific safety messages. And we'll be able to put that in there whenever we think we need to sort of put the pedal down on the recovery message and the safety of travel. So we'll be running both of those this summer. Our campaign overall is going to shift. Of course, what we're seeing from the research, a lot of the things that Marlise showed, was that people no longer have the desire for the new and novel. They really want the tried and true, and that's what North Carolina can bring, so we're going to do that. We also plan to do some more heavy work with our in-state partnerships through the Association of Broadcasters and the Press Association, as well as the Outdoor Advertising Association, because we understand that in-state is going to be a large part of this market that we're going after, and we're going to want to reach them in every way in which we can. We're going to try and do as much as we can to have all these programs be co-opable, so partners can get engaged with them, they can piggyback on them, and they can either join in our ads or take our ad concepts and use them on their own. We're trying to, as we hope to move forward, to develop even more co-op programs for people. We'll also do the best we can to educate throughout this summer as these programs evolve, to keep partners in line with them. We've started some research this week on in-state residents to see their attitudes. As Marlise showed, a lot of that research is throughout the South. We wanted to get some specific information on how North Carolina residents felt. We'll use this to judge the recovery campaign to see if we can get them back into the traveling mode and reduce that fear of travel, and also fear of having travelers come into their communities. That's going to be very important with us. And so we look forward to doing more of that. As we said, the recovery budget's about a $5 million program. We had talked with the legislature about a $20 million program, and with the governor's office. $5 million has been reserved right now. There's still potential to get additional funds for the recovery campaign as we move forward, so we'll keep everybody updated on that as it goes. Okay, and so that's really the where we are with our campaigns. Coming out of this COVID situation, obviously I told you we're going to have a new look. It's going to have to be more tried and true, and more talk about the things that are inherently North Carolina. Our first little mini campaign out of this is a small campaign we did called Cook It Forward North Carolina. And we're really excited about it. Allison Schultz is going to get on and talk about the campaign, how it's going since it's debuted, what kind of numbers it's doing. But I think you'll see this is the kind of campaign we want to move forward with. It's part charity, but it also talks about the things that are fantastic to do and see in North Carolina. Allison.
Thank you so much, Wit. It's been a couple of weeks since I first shared with all of you that we were planning to launch this campaign, Cook It Forward NC. Cook It Forward NC shines the light on North Carolina's diverse, distinct, and delicious culinary offerings, but it also, as Wit mentioned, has a charitable side to it. We know that restaurant workers have been hardest hit by this pandemic, and we wanted to do what we could to shine the light to help raise funds for the restaurant workers. Next slide. Just to give you a brief overview, Cook It Forward NC deploys North Carolina's most acclaimed and award-winning chefs. They start this chain reaction that is a pay it forward goodwill across Instagram. It also drives Instagram users to a landing page on our website where they can learn more about our esteemed chefs, as well as donate to the North Carolina Restaurant Workers Relief Fund. Next slide. So the campaign was kicked off last week on May 11th, and it was Ashley Shanty of Asheville who kicked off the campaign. And it's really interesting when you heard from Marlise today talk about how we should be, talking to our followers and to our audiences. And these chefs could not be doing a better job as local influencers for our brand. Ashley gets out there and she talks about a dish that she really misses and craves. And it happens to be this wonderful fried flounder roll. She gives a lot of credit to where that flounder roll was made, which was Saltbox Seafood Joint in Durham. And so then we're already mentioning two cities, and then she cooks it forward next by nominating Chef Jake Wood. So you can see this pay it forward progression of each chef getting out there, talking about what they love about food and culinary art, paying it forward by nominating another chef, shining the light on as many restaurants and chefs as they possibly can, so we can show just how diverse our culinary offerings are. Next slide. So here is actually an image from following Cook It Forward NC on Instagram. And what you can see from this page, there are so many dishes that really show from the east part of the state all the way to the west what we offer to visitors when they're able to travel again. We're looking at modern diner, we're looking at barbecue, Pan-Asian, Spanish tapas, Indian street food, low country, seafood, and Appalachian dishes. So it's been a great campaign so far. In just 1 week, we've had 23 posts, 22 of them from our chefs. And most of them have been award winning, but they have also dug in and they are shining the light on other chefs and pitmasters across the state. Next slide. We talk about how we want to drive these followers to our website on visitnc.com. The landing page is Cook It Forward NC. You can go to that. When followers land on the page, as I've mentioned, it encourages the followers to make sure that they're following the campaign on Instagram, but also they can learn more about the chefs, as you see here, Vivian Howard, Ashley Shanti, Ashley Christensen, and Chiti Kumar. And then we have that wonderful donate button. Other things you can learn about the chefs when you're on the page is a peek into the pantry. So these chefs are sharing with us those items they always have on hand and certainly will be using when we get to the second phase of the campaign. Next slide. So as we get into the second phase of the campaign, which is all about taking these chefs to do Instagram live cooking demonstrations, we wanted to have an engaging poll to put out there to Visit NC's followers. So what we have that we're working on right now is part of a mock-up, and it's something that all our partners can use if they like. Do you love North Carolina restaurants? Well, there's only 2 answers. All right, Marlise, really, there is only 2 answers here. And that is, yes, I love North Carolina restaurants, or you bet I do. North Carolina chefs do too, and they've been sharing dishes they love from around the state. And this mock-up helps show how we will, again, shine the light through our own channels on these chefs who've been giving their time to help us stay connected and to stay local. So next slide. So phase 2 is going to begin next week. And what we're doing is we're going to get with anywhere from 5 to 8 of our chefs who have agreed to go forward and do a cooking demonstration on behalf of the campaign. They'll also, baked into that message, will again shine the light on those restaurant workers who are badly in need of help. In the live, we don't know if these chefs are going to cook a dish for which they were nominated, if they're going to cook one of their own favorite dishes as culinary artists. We're going to leave it up to them, but we know that it's going to be really a great video for us to promote. From there, we will go on Instagram TV and we will shorten those videos so that we can boost them with paid media. And then we'll also do short 1-minute videos so we can continue to promote the campaign. Next slide. So here's a mock-up of what we might see on our landing page as the campaign progresses. So here we have, one of our chefs cooking a famous dish, and we would take those videos. We had put this on the landing page of our website. You can watch the video, or you could actually click within the frame and you would be able to see a lot more. You could see the recipe there, and that's going to be the start of phase 3, which is creating a virtual digital cookbook of North Carolina cuisine. So next slide. So how can you join the campaign? You know, when we launched this a couple of weeks ago, we heard from many of you and wanted to share, here are some of the ways that you can get involved. One, please just follow the campaign on your Instagram channel. Share the posts of the nominated chefs, especially if they're from your communities. And we have seen every hotspot where we are a culinary destination represented in Cook It Forward NC. Invite chefs in your own community, the cooks, the pit masters, the sous chefs. Get them involved as well. Nominate them and just make sure that they create, Cook It Forward posts of their own. We only ask that you adhere to those campaign guidelines, which are, tag an image of a dish created by another chef and make sure you tag them in the restaurant, use the hashtag, and provide a call to action to drive to Cook It Forward NC on our website, and encourage those donations to Restaurant Workers Relief Fund. Had a conversation this morning with NCRLA, and what we have learned is this campaign is helping to sustain those donations to the fund, which is, very important. So next slide. So as I actually close out, there is one thing that I wanted to read. I am a big fan of Seth Godin, maybe many of you are as well. But I wanted to read something here that says, when we get to the other side of this pandemic and look back, what will we have contributed, learned, and created? It's on us, and that means all of us here, to spread and ultimately create better stories. We're all connected, but the future is local, and that's exactly what these chefs are doing for our brand, for all of us across the state. Cook It Forward NC is a story that inspires consumers to take action and to tell others. We know that we're all connected, and it's on us to find and spread and tell better stories. So it's not just Cook It Forward NC, but it's Count on Me NC as well, and the recovery plan that Wit has shared this morning that will make sure that we will have the comeback that North Carolina so richly deserves. Thank you.
All right, that's awesome. Thanks, Allison. Really appreciate that. And we're going to go to question and answers. First question is, when will the Count on Me NC business and hospitality training be available? And we hope to have that up by next week. That's really coming from NC State. They're designing the program, and unfortunately, I think the CDC was late in getting some of the guidelines back to them for overall businesses. So we had hoped to have them up Friday, but it's looking like next week. We're going to try for Monday, but we'll get them up as soon as possible. And then I had one other question, Zoom backgrounds. Do you happen to know when the links to additional destinations Zoom sites will go live on our Zoom page? Allison, do you know? I'm sure we're working on that.
Yes, that's certainly in process right now. I know that our marketing manager, Dana, is working with our agency to ensure that they are live very soon. And one thing I do want to mention too is we do have a Giphy for Cook It Forward that can be utilized by partners as well as they spread the message on their social channels.
Okay. Is it okay to use the hashtag for dishes from our restaurants, but that are not tagged chefs? We will have chefs to recommend the program. We want to participate in multiple ways, but do not want to use the hashtag improperly or off campaign.
Absolutely, you can use the hashtag. I think as long as you bake into your messaging to go to our landing page on our website where you can learn more about the campaign, that would be great. So no, we want you to get your chefs involved. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Do you have research information, Marlise, pertaining to the anticipated length of stay planned for future visitors, such as weekend versus week-long or average number of stays?
You're muted.
Oops, yep, sorry, Marlise, you're muted. Marlise, hopefully you got a little note that said unmute.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry,
I kept hitting it and it wouldn't come back. Okay, I do have, I can access that data. I'd have to dig into their data set to get the length of stay. I do believe that they have asked, Destination Analyst has asked that question in previous weeks, and they probably do have some data. So if whoever is asking the question wants to shoot me an email, I will dig into that data and see what I can find.
Great. And then we had another Cook It Forward. I think some of this is an answer, but I just want to make sure we're all clear. Do chefs have to wait to be tagged in by another chef before they post? The answer would be
Absolutely.
no, right? And then the question,
sorry.
okay, and then question 2 is, do chefs have to, are chefs supposed to be sharing a picture of another chef's dish that they have taken before, or are they supposed to be cooking or recreating that dish and sharing a picture of that?
No, actually, you just can go find the dish that you want to cook it forward, created by another culinary artist, and put it out there. You don't have to create that dish yourself.
Okay, and then had another question about if there's a possibility to get more funding from the legislature. I do think that's possible. I know Senator Rick Gunn is pushing for that. In fact, today, this very day, he's at the Commerce Committee of the Senate and trying to get us that additional $15 million to make that $20 million plan whole. Would any of the additional funds trickle down to CVB DMOs to amplify their message? Yes, that is definitely possible. In the $20 million plan we submitted, we had $7 million that were available for partners to fund co-op marketing with us. That is not funds to help DMOs exist or maintain operations. This would be strictly for marketing in our program. And then what can we expect? When can we expect to see the rollout campaign-wise from Visit NC? Well, Count on Me NC really is the first part of that campaign to come out. We're going to promote Count on Me NC, and then once we can get people a little less concerned about safety and the fear of having visitors in their place, then we'll come out with a more inspirational message. So really, it's going to depend on what the research shows us to seeing that. Okay. Another question. Do you have any insight on potential openings and timing for phase 2 here in NC? We hope, and I think the governor's going to make an announcement today. The earliest possible time we could go to phase 2 would be Friday, May 22nd, this Friday. We hope we're on track for that. I would say watch for the governor's announcement today at 5. We're hopeful that he's going to say we'll go to phase 2 on Friday. That lifts the stay-at-home order. There's still some restrictions, but restaurants can open back up at a lower percentage of their potential seating, but they can be open for some dine-in seating. And there's a few other additional things that open up more for that. All right. Are the Count on Me NC materials downloadable? And what about the clings? Okay, so yes, they are. What happens is as soon as you pass either the manager's course or course 4 or course 5, you will be kicked back to our website. And if you agree to receive the information, you will get a toolkit sent to you that you can download that includes the hashtags, the campaign signage, sample posts for you on social, things like that. You will immediately get receive a almost sort of like a diploma that says you have successfully completed the campaign, but you have to click on the site to come back to us to get that toolkit when you completed it. All right, let's see what else. Guy, do we have any other questions that I missed? Did you see?
Yes, we do. For Marlise, do you have research information pertaining to anticipated length of stay? Does it look like it's more weekends versus week-long or average number of days?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to dig into the destination analyst database to find that, but I do know that they've asked some questions on length of stay. I'll have to dig around and find it. So whoever asked the question, if they want to shoot me an email, I'll be happy to look into that for them.
And that certainly will be something we'll cover in our resident sentiment survey.
Absolutely.
We also had a question, Marlise. Could you remind us what makes up the southern region or southern states you mentioned in the destination analysts?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me right now, so it's a little broader than what we think of as the South. It does encompass Texas as well, so it's a little broader, but it's the 4 geographic regions that Destination Analyst uses. So it's a little larger, but it does encompass our primary markets at least. It just extends a little further. So it goes across to Texas and up to West Virginia, I believe.
That's great. Okay, then we had another question. What are you seeing, hearing about outdoor events? I'm hearing a lot of things. I think we'll get further clarity from the governor on what the state policies will be. With going to phase 2, that would expand the amount of people that can gather together. And I know there are lots of people working with the DHHS to come up with some of the best guidelines for that. So I think we'll hear more about that today. I haven't seen any official policy on outdoor events, but that would likely come from the governor's office as we move into phase 2. All right, Guy, I'm not seeing anything else. You got anything else for us?
Yes, maybe you can share, has information been shared about welcome centers and when they may reopen?
I have not. Thanks for somebody for asking about that. That's a really good question. So the Department of Commerce has submitted a plan to the Department of Health and Human Services about reopening the welcome centers. They're waiting final approval on that. But initially, we really hope to have them back open on June 1st. The staff would probably go in before that to start preparing them and getting them ready. Obviously, there's going to be some changes in policies and brochure distribution. You know, our counselors will be wearing masks. They'll have gloves. We're going to set up screens for them. So there's going to be some changes. It's going to take a little while to implement that. So the optimistic view is that we go to phase 2 this Friday, and then the welcome centers all open up at once on June 1st. That's the hope. And they'll send out an official release once that's verified.
All right. And Whit, can you reiterate when roughly it's anticipated that courses 4 and 5 in the Count on Me NC would be available?
Sure, we're hoping for Monday. I would say that they will be up by Wednesday. So pretty soon everybody will be participating in the program. And I know there's a lot of excitement about it, and we're trying to get them as quick as we can. But what we really want to make sure is that they are you know, everything's done in there in the proper way, and that we're really ensuring people's health. So we want to make sure we get all the signings and all the health officials are clear on these programs, and that they're exactly the right procedures to do before we run them. So we'll get them up as quickly as we can, most likely early next week.
And certainly you would encourage DMOs that have their own visitor centers to take the courses and get the designation once that's available, correct?
Yes, I would definitely do that. It's really great for any business to do, because the 4th and the 5th module talk about general cleaning and sanitation and sanitizing things, how to do that, what types of chemicals to use, how long to leave them on different surfaces. And then the 5th one is about staffing and employees, how to deal with them, how to treat them, and the best and proper ways to do that. So anybody that has a visitor center or is open to the public, I would really recommend that they do those trainings. They don't take that long. They're really easy to do. And once you get them, I think they'll be very beneficial to you. I will say also, once you've taken the training, you're going to be included in a database. And as we get updates, as the CDC changes potentially some of those guidelines, you will receive that information as well. So not only does it help you now, it's going to help you going forward as things change and we adjust to sort of the new normal.
And to reiterate, this is a completely free program.
Yes, completely free, and we hope everybody does it and promotes it, and really, you know, so you can count on us. And I think it's a very North Carolina thing to do, to say we're going to start back traveling again, but we're going to do it in the right way. We're going to do it the right way for our guests, for our citizens, for our employees, and for everybody who travels.
Okay, great. And one last question. Is it okay for visitor centers, not the welcome centers, but visitor centers to open during phase 2?
Yes, as I understand it, phase 2 will allow opening of those types of businesses. under the governor's law for the state. Now, if there may be local restrictions that do not allow that, but as far as the state is concerned, that would be advisable if you do it under the guidelines that we're sending out.
And very last one, Wit, do we know when guidelines will be released for hotels and other event venues for the number of people that can meet indoors, of course, with some social distancing in effect?
Yeah, our hope is that that'll come out as soon as we go to phase 2. I think some of that may come out today with the governor's press conference, but that will be coming out. And I know there have been groups of people working on those figures to get to maximize what's good for the benefit of North Carolina's economy, but also maintain that safety. So I know there's a group that's working on that, and I'm sure that'll either come out today or by the time we move to phase 2.
And to help follow up with that, if you do go to the Department of Health and Human Services website, a lot of the slides that have been used during the governor's press conferences with regards to specifics on all 3 phases are available for downloading and for review. And again, those do give specifics as to what is anticipated to be able to open and what restrictions are loosened during each phase of this reopening plan.
Yep, that's true. And those guidelines are available on countonnc.org as well. So you can go to the CDC and the DHHS guidelines through them. And we also have some guidelines there from the American Lodging Association for vacation rentals. We have guidelines on there from Verma and some other businesses as well. Okay, well, I think we've answered all the questions. Hopefully we haven't kept everybody on too long. We will not be here next week, but we'll be back in 2 weeks unless the situation drastically changes to talk more about the campaign and how we're moving forward. So best of luck with everybody. As always, if you need us, give us a call and talk to us, and let's hope we can get things back rolling as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. Thanks a lot, everybody.